Hey friends, this is a little bit of a different video, but I wanted to update all of you on a recent change in my health and how that is affecting me and the channel moving forward. If you follow me on Instagram, you may actually have already seen this post that I put out, but in case you missed it, here is the update. I was recently diagnosed with something called Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia syndrome, or POTS for short. POTS is a syndrome that causes a variety of different symptoms when you go from sitting or lying down to standing up. For most people, when you lie down and then stand up, gravity pulls all of the blood in your body down to your feet, and then the blood vessels in your legs constrict to help keep your blood flowing evenly throughout your body. But when you have POTS, that process doesn't really happen as well, and the blood will actually pool in the vessels below your heart. And this can cause all sorts of symptoms, but the most common ones are dizziness, fatigue, headaches, and brain fog. When I put this post up on Instagram, I had a ton of questions from people about POTS, and a lot of them were around ways that I'm managing it, how I got a diagnosis, and also how I anticipate this is going to affect me and my outdoor lifestyle in the future. So I want to kind of try and answer those three questions because I think they're really good ones, and I do already know that this diagnosis is going to affect me and my backpacking. But before I get to that, let me just give you all a rundown on how I got diagnosed with POTS. For over a decade, I have been going to doctors for a variety of what I thought were disconnected symptoms and problems. Things like migraines, anxiety and depression, panic attacks, tingling in my hands and feet, Raynaud's, rosacea, stomach issues, all sorts of problems that I would wind up going to doctors for like many years. For the longest time, I thought that all of these disconnected problems were actually related to me having chronic migraines. But sometime in the past couple of years, some of these symptoms started to get a lot worse. And a little over a year ago, I had a compounding of all of these symptoms that led me to the emergency room. The doctors ran all sorts of tests. They did a bunch of blood work, just a ton of different things to try and figure out what was going on. And they ultimately concluded that it was just stress related, or potentially it was a food intolerance that I had developed over many years. And I was pretty satisfied with that answer until about 2 months ago, when I started experiencing these really bad dizzy spells again. Over the course of about a week, it went from simply feeling dizzy when I stood up to feeling like my brain was almost rattling around in my skull. If I turned too quickly, I would get tunnel vision. I had tinnitus, I had really bad brain fog, I was super lightheaded, and it eventually reached a point in that week where I felt like I could barely get out of bed without feeling really dizzy. I was spending the majority of my day on the couch, and I was really just struggling to do normal, everyday activities. At that point in time, I really felt like there was something seriously wrong with me that hadn't been explained away by something like anxiety or stress or a headache. So I essentially went to my doctor demanding that I be tested for POTS. POTS is identified by having a heart rate that goes up by 30 or more beats per minute when you go from a resting heart rate, such as lying or sitting down, to a standing heart rate. So in the case of someone with POTS, your heart rate might go from, say, 65 beats per minute when you're sitting to 120 beats per minute when you're standing. And for most people, that heart rate will come down pretty quickly after you stand up, but if you have POTS, it stays elevated. So for me, I just went in, my doctor tested my heart rate when I was in a supine position, so lying down, and then checked my heart rate again when I stood up and continued to check it for a minute, then 5 minutes, and 10 minutes after I had been standing. And my heart rate definitely went up by that 30 or more beats per minute and did not come down. And that was how they diagnosed POTS. It is a more complicated process than that, but I'm just giving you kind of the basis of the diagnosis. In my case, once the doctor said, yes, you have all of these symptoms that point to POTS, they also opted to refer me to get what's called a tilt table test that I will get done at the University of Washington, and that will help kind of rule out any additional comorbidities or other things that could be causing some of the additional symptoms that I've been experiencing. I'm not going to get too much into that because that tilt table test is still coming up and it's on the horizon for me, But I mention it because POTS is a syndrome that often goes along with a variety of other syndromes or conditions or sometimes chronic illnesses. So that is why I mention it. How am I treating POTS? Most of the treatments for POTS are just around kind of controlling symptoms, and a lot of that has to do with some lifestyle changes. So things like adjusting your diet, adjusting how much water you drink, exercise, movement throughout the day, things like that. But the most common treatment for POTS is actually to increase your salt intake. Increasing salt intake can help increase blood volume, which is really beneficial for people who have POTS. So one thing I've done since getting diagnosed is actually increase my salt intake to somewhere around 8 to 10 grams of salt per day, per the doctor's orders. For me, the easiest way to do this has just been to drink electrolytes. So I'm actually here, I have my little glass of electrolyte water that I've been drinking. And if you've been following my channel for a long time, I'm sure you know that this is Element electrolytes, which are far and away my favorite electrolytes. It's something that I've found to be really beneficial for me when I'm out hiking and backpacking. And it's only now that I really realize that not only has Element helped me with dehydration and migraines, it's also helped me kind of control POTS symptoms when I'm putting my body in a really stressful and physically demanding situation, such as hiking or backpacking, particularly in the heat. I've actually started carrying about twice as much Element on my backpacking trips as I used to. So I'm consuming somewhere between 4 and 5 packets of Element per day when I'm hiking, which might seem like a lot, but that's because my body really needs that. I absolutely love Element. It's not only really beneficial for my health, it's also really delicious. So if you haven't yet tried Element, I would highly recommend it. For me, it's really great for POTS, but it's also just really great for anybody who gets headaches or muscle cramps or fatigue due to dehydration. If you haven't yet tried Element, definitely go to the link below, which is drinklmnt.com/Miranda Goes Outside, and place an order. If you place an order there, you'll get a sample pack of 8 of Element's most popular flavors. I kind of rotate between which flavor of the day I'm choosing. So like today we're doing raspberry, yesterday we did orange, but personally I think that they're all really delicious, which is a very good thing considering the sheer amount of it I am now consuming. In addition to increasing my salt intake, I'm also trying to be cognizant of how much time I spend sitting at a computer, getting up, moving my legs a little bit, going on walks, just kind of trying to keep my body moving and therefore keep blood flowing throughout my limbs. So we got all of that out of the way. So now it's time for the big question. How is this going to affect me, and how is it going to affect the channel? I would love to say that this diagnosis is not going to affect me or the channel whatsoever. I have no plans of slowing down my backpacking or stopping creating outdoor content or even changing the cadence with which I film and get outside and really experience nature and share all of that with all of you. But that being said, already in the past 2 months, I have had to postpone 2 separate trips because of a POTS flare. So I think it's sort of unrealistic to be like,
this isn't gonna change anything.
Because it is about my health and I share my life with all of you. So obviously there's gonna be a little bit of a change. I think the biggest change that you'll probably notice is that I'll be talking about POTS more. In the same way that I've talked about anxiety and chronic pain, this is now just something that is a part of my life, which means it is a part of my journey backpacking and hiking. In some ways, this is kind of only the beginning of this health journey for me because I still need to undergo a variety of different tests to rule out any comorbidities or additional issues. But it's also finally an explanation for issues that I've dealt with for the entirety of my adult life. And honestly, I'm feeling really hopeful about the whole thing. I think having a name to put to certain problems and health conditions that I've dealt with for so long is really encouraging. So I also want to take this time to answer any questions that you might have, whether it's about my personal POTS diagnosis or just about dealing with any type of health issues when you are an outdoorsy human being. So please comment below if you have anything that you want to discuss or any questions you want to ask. I am here to listen to all of it and hopefully to answer them the best that I can. Okay, cool. Now, with that, I have a ton of backpacking adventures coming up that I am so excited to share with all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking around and supporting my channel. And as always, if you liked this video, you know what to do. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you outside. Bye.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Bye, I love you.